October 14th, 1943, 24,000 feet above the German border. The cold is a physical presence, a thing with teeth. Inside the cockpit of the B-24 Liberator, Vagrant Vulture, Captain Dean "Mac" Mackenzie feels it creeping through the seals of the canopy, a bitter promise of the air outside. His breath fogs in front of his face, instantly crystallizing on his oxygen mask. Below, a fractured sea of white clouds stretches to an endless horizon. Above, the sun is a pale, indifferent disk in a sapphire sky. The roar of the four Pratt & Whitney R1830 twin Wasp engines is not a sound you hear, but a vibration you become. It is in his bones, in his teeth, a constant, thunderous reminder that he is suspended between life and death by aluminum and gasoline. He scans the formation, a vast, sprawling city of bombers clawing its way deeper into the heart of the Reich. Hundreds of B-17s and B-24s stacked in combat boxes, their metal skins glinting. They are the 8th Air Force, a mailed fist aimed at the ball-bearing factories of Schweinfurt. This is the second raid. The first was a bloodbath. Mac's throat is dry. Every man in this sky knows the odds. Their fighter escort, the nimble P-47 Thunderbolts they call Little Friends, are nearing the limit of their range. Soon they will have to turn back, leaving the bombers alone, fat and slow, in a sky that belongs to the enemy. Captain, the voice of his co-pilot, Lieutenant Sam Gallo, crackles through the intercom, tight with tension. Fuel gauges for the escorts are looking thirsty. Mac doesn't need to look. He can feel it. The collective anxiety in the bomber stream is a palpable force. He keys his own mic, his voice a low, calm he does not feel. "Roger that, Sam. Keep your eyes peeled." As if on cue, he sees them, the distant, flickering glints of silver as the Thunderbolts peel away, waggling their wings in a gesture of grim farewell. The sky suddenly feels immense, empty, and hostile. 30 miles away, at an airfield near Stuttgart, Oberleutnant Klaus Richter zips up his flight suit. The alert siren is still wailing its urgent song across the concrete. He feels the familiar surge of adrenaline, a cold fire in his veins. He is an experta, an ace with 12 confirmed kills painted as white bars on the rudder of his Focke-Wulf FW-190. He jogs toward the fighter, its menacing radial engine already coughing to life, a cloud of blue smoke whipped away by the propeller's wash. As he climbs into the cockpit, his ground crew chief shouts over the engine's roar. "They are the fat ones today, Herr Oberleutnant, the Liberators." Richter grins. The B-24s. He almost prefers them. The B-17 Flying Fortress is a legend, a tough opponent that can absorb incredible punishment. But the Liberator, his squadron calls them fliegende Schweinentore, flying barn doors. They are ugly, clumsy-looking things. A long, slab-sided fuselage slung beneath a thin, plank-like wing. They look like something cobbled together from spare parts, an insult to the elegant science of aerodynamics. They fly in loose formations, wallowing through the air, their twin tails making them unmistakable. An easy kill. You charge them head-on, a torrent of 20mm cannon shells into their massive glass cockpit, and they shatter. They burn. They fall. Now airborne, climbing at a vicious rate, Richter leads his swarm of 4 fighters toward the rendezvous point. He listens to the chatter on the radio, the reports coming in from spotters. The bomber stream is enormous, a river of death flowing toward the fatherland. But the escorts have gone home. His grin widens. It is feeding time. Through his canopy, he finally sees them, dark specks against the high-altitude cirrus clouds. They grow larger, resolving into the familiar, ungainly shapes he despises. He feels a surge of predatory contempt. He looks over at his wingman, winks, and gives the signal to arm his cannons. The low, thrumming hum of the gun chargers fills his cockpit. The barn doors are open for business, and he is here to close them, permanently. The laughter he shares with his wingman over the radio is sharp and confident. They have no idea what is coming. The intercom in Vagrant Vulture explodes in a cacophony of fear. "Bandits! 11 o'clock high! 100 of them!" Staff Sergeant Mike Apostle, the top turret gunner, his voice strained through the oxygen mask, has seen them first. Mac's head whips around, his eyes scanning the impossibly bright sky. And then he sees them too. Not specks anymore, but a swarm of angry hornets boiling out of the sun. Focke-Wulfs and Messerschmitts climbing with arrogant ease, positioning themselves for the attack. The disciplined geometry of the American combat box begins to feel like a trap. There is nowhere to run. Klaus Richter picks his target, a B-24 on the lower outer edge of the formation, a straggler in the making, the vagrant vulture. Its boxy shape fills his gun sight. It is a perfect target, almost comically large. He watches it through the thick, armored glass of his cockpit, a surgeon studying a patient before the first incision. The American gunners have not yet opened up. Good, they are nervous. He pushes his stick forward slightly, beginning the gentle arc of his head-on attack run. Anton, leader to all units, his voice is calm, professional, belying the savage intent. Engaging the lowest box. 12 o'clock approach. Fire on my mark. Inside the Liberator, time seems to stretch and distort. The German fighters are growing at an alarming rate, their yellow noses and black crosses becoming terrifyingly clear. "They're coming straight on," bellows the bombardier from the nose turret. Mac grips the yoke, his knuckles white. The plane feels sluggish, a heavy whale in a sky full of sharks. "Gunners, wait for range," he commands, his voice steady. "Make every round count." He can see the winking lights on the leading edges of the FW-190's wings. Cannon fire. His stomach clenches. The closing speed is over 500 miles per hour. It is a suicidal game of chicken played at 5 miles high. For a split second, there is a horrifying intimacy between the two aircraft. Mac can see the dark shape of the pilot in the German cockpit. Then the world erupts. Richter's 4 cannons and 2 machine guns unleash a torrent of steel and high explosives. At the same instant, the .50 caliber machine guns in the B-24's nose turret answer back, spitting streams of golden tracers. The sound is indescribable, a deafening, metallic hail, like 1,000 hammers pounding on the fuselage. A 20-millimeter shell explodes against the armored glass of the cockpit, just inches from Sam Gallo's head. It doesn't penetrate, but a spiderweb of cracks instantly obscures his vision, and a shower of deadly glass fragments peppers the instrument panel. Another shell rips through the fuselage behind them, severing hydraulic lines. The smell of burning fluid fills the cockpit. Mac feels the controls go slack, mushy. "We've lost hydraulics in the port side," Gallo yells, his voice high with panic. "Number 2 engine is hit. I see smoke." Richter pulls up sharply, the B-24 flashing beneath him so close he could almost touch it. He feels the thud of a few .50 caliber rounds striking his own plane's belly armor, but they are glancing blows. He rolls his FW-190 over, looking down. A plume of black smoke is now trailing from the Liberator's inner left engine. It is crippled. It is falling behind the protective curtain of the formation. His lips curl into a satisfied smile. The barn door is broken. He banks his fighter, a graceful, deadly maneuver, preparing to come around for the killing blow. He will circle back, get on its tail, where its defensive firepower is weakest, and saw its wing off. Apostle's voice screams over the intercom. "He's coming around! 6 o'clock!" Mac fights the yoke, trying to keep the heavy bomber level. The dead engine is creating a massive drag, pulling them into a slow, fatal yaw. He sees another Liberator to his right take a direct hit in the wing root. The wing folds upwards impossibly, and the entire plane cartwheels into a fiery explosion, showering the sky with debris that drums against their own fuselage. Men are screaming on the radio. The formation is breaking apart. Vagrant Vulture is alone, wounded, and losing altitude. Richter is lining up his shot. The crosshairs in his gun sight are settling on the B-24's broad back. This is the end of the hunt. He is sure of it. "We're falling out of the group, Mac! They're gonna tear us to pieces!" Sam Gallo's voice is a raw nerve. The vibration from the damaged number 2 engine has intensified into a violent, bone-jarring shudder. The black smoke trailing behind them is a funeral banner, a clear signal to every predator in the sky. This one is dying. Mac can feel the life bleeding out of his aircraft. The controls are heavy, unresponsive. Below them, the German landscape is a patchwork of greens and browns, a hostile world waiting to claim them. The 8th Air Force procedure is clear. Stay in formation at all costs. The interlocking fields of fire from the bomber's 50 calibers are their only shield. But that shield is now hundreds of yards away and pulling ahead. They are alone. Klaus Richter, from his vantage point 1,000 yards behind, watches with cold satisfaction. The bomber is wallowing, its movements sluggish and predictable. He has seen this a dozen times. The crew will fight the controls for a few more minutes. Perhaps they will try to feather the prop on the dead engine. Then, when the fire spreads to the wing tank, they will bail out. He will watch the white parachutes blossom against the sky, and then he will put a final, merciful burst of cannon fire into the abandoned machine. He eases his throttle forward, closing the distance. There is no rush. This is a foregone conclusion. Inside the cockpit of Vagrant Vulture, a different reality is unfolding. Desperation. Mac's mind is racing, cycling through 1,000 hours of training, 100 nightmare scenarios. Bail out? They would be prisoners of war before they hit the ground. Try to fight? They are too slow, too damaged. The tail gunner's voice cuts through the static, laced with terror. "He's right on us, Captain. I can't depress my guns far enough to hit him if he stays there." The German ace is patient, toying with them. Mac glances at the airspeed indicator, 180 miles per hour, and dropping. They are a sitting duck. Then an idea sparks in his mind, a wild, suicidal notion born of pure desperation. It was something he had heard whispered in briefing rooms and late-night bull sessions, a rumor, a piece of hangar lore. A crazy theory about the B-24's odd-looking wing, the Davis wing. Long, thin, and remarkably strong. The engineers claimed it could withstand stresses far beyond its specifications. The old test pilots said you could dive a Liberator like a fighter. Everyone laughed it off. Diving a 4-engine heavy bomber? It would rip its own wings off. It was a one-way ticket down. "Sam," Mac says, his voice eerily calm, "tighten your harness." Gallo looks at him, his eyes wide with confusion over his oxygen mask. "What? Mac, what are you doing?" Mac ignores him. He keys the intercom. "All crew, brace for a hard maneuver. Brace yourselves now." He can hear the confusion and fear in the acknowledgments from the waist gunners and the radio man. They think he has lost his mind. He probably has. With every ounce of his strength, Mac shoves the control yoke forward, all the way to the firewall. The nose of the Vagrant Vulture drops with sickening speed. The bomber, which had been fighting for every foot of altitude, now surrenders to gravity entirely. It lurches into a steep, terrifying descent. Richter, in his FW-190, blinks in surprise. What is this? The American is diving. Is he trying to escape into the cloud layer far below? A foolish move. The Focke-Wulf is one of the best dive bombers ever built. He can follow this flying brick anywhere it wants to go. He pushes his own stick forward, the powerful BMW radial engine of his fighter howling in protest as he accelerates to keep pace. He anticipates a slow, clumsy plunge. He is expecting to overtake the bomber easily, to fly lazy circles around it as it falls apart. But something is wrong. The B-24 isn't just falling, it's accelerating. The black smoke from its damaged engine is now a straight, clean line against the sky, a line that is getting steeper by the second. The airspeed indicator on Mac's shaking instrument panel climbs past 250, then 300. The red line for the B-24's maximum permissible speed is 320 miles per hour. They are about to fly straight through it. The world inside the B-24 ceases to be an aircraft and becomes a torture chamber. The initial lurch of the dive throws everything not bolted down against the forward bulkheads. Men are slammed into their stations, the negative G-force lifting them from their seats before gravity reasserts itself with crushing weight. The gentle drone of the engines transforms into a deranged, syncopated scream as the three good propellers begin to windmill, spinning faster than their designers ever intended. The sound is joined by a new noise, a high-frequency shriek that builds and builds, the sound of the air itself being torn apart by the bomber's 2-ton bulk. Mac and Sam are thrown against their harnesses, their full weight on the yokes, pushing the bomber steeper. The airspeed indicator needle whips past 350 miles per hour, then 400. The entire airframe begins to vibrate with a terrifying, resonant frequency. It feels as if the plane is about to disintegrate into a million pieces. Rivets are popping from the skin like gunshots, the sharp cracks audible even over the roar of the wind. The thin Davis wing, which made the Liberator so efficient at cruise altitude, is now its only hope. Designed for low drag, it slices through the dense lower air with shocking efficiency. Its massive internal spar, a testament to Consolidated Aircraft's robust engineering, is being tested to its absolute breaking point. 450, Sam yells, his voice a strangled gasp. The controls are freezing up. The aerodynamic forces are so immense that the control surfaces, the ailerons, the rudder, the elevators, are effectively locked in place. They are no longer flying a plane, they are riding a 25-ton bomb. In the waist section, the gunners have abandoned their posts, clinging to ammunition belts and support struts to keep from being thrown through the open windows. The air rushing past is a solid wall, a physical force that threatens to rip their helmets from their heads. The temperature is rising rapidly as they plummet through the altitudes, the bitter cold of the stratosphere replaced by the thick, oxygen-rich air of the lowlands. Klaus Richter is in a state of disbelief. He had followed the B-24 into the dive, confident in his FW-190's superior performance. But the Liberator is not behaving like a bomber. It is falling like a stone, and it is still accelerating. His own airspeed is nearing 480 miles per hour. His fighter is complaining, the controls stiffening, the engine temperature climbing into the red. And still, the Fliegende Scheunentor is pulling away from him. It is impossible. It defies every principle of aviation he has ever learned. A heavy bomber, with its massive cross-section and crude aerodynamics, should be hitting a terminal velocity far lower than his sleek, purpose-built fighter. But the B-24 keeps going. The needle in Mac's cockpit touches 500 miles per hour. The sound is no longer a shriek, but a continuous, unholy howl. The wings are visibly flexing, bowing upwards under the strain. Mac can see the skin on the top surface wrinkling, a terrifying sign of imminent structural failure. He is staring death in the face, betting his life and the lives of his 9 crewmen on a piece of hangar gossip. He knows that the pullout, if they can even attempt it, will be just as violent as the dive. The G-forces could snap the wings clean off. Below them, the cloud deck is rushing up to meet them. Richter watches, his jaw slack. The B-24 is a runaway train, a force of nature. He cannot keep up. His own FW-190 is at its absolute VNE, velocity never exceed. To push it any further is to court disaster, to have his own wings tear from their roots. With a curse of pure frustration and astonishment, he eases back on his stick, the G-force pressing him deep into his seat as he breaks off the pursuit. He watches, bewildered, as the smoking, screaming American bomber plunged into the white sanctuary of the clouds and vanishes. The sky where his easy kill had been is now empty. The laughter from earlier feels like a lifetime ago, a foolish memory from a different war. He is alone with an impossible truth. The moment Vagrant Vulture enters the cloud, the world outside vanishes into a blind, gray chaos. They are still diving, still screaming towards the earth at over 500 miles per hour, but now they are doing it with no visual reference. The altimeter is their only god, and it is unwinding at a terrifying speed. 10,000 feet, Sam shouts, his voice cracking. Pull up, Mac! For God's sake, pull up! This is the moment of truth. Mac and Sam heave back on the yokes with a primal grunt. It's like trying to bend a steel girder. For a heart-stopping second, nothing happens. The controls are locked solid. Then, slowly, agonizingly, they feel a response. The nose begins to lift. The G-force is instantaneous and brutal. It is a physical blow, a giant, invisible hand crushing them into their seats. The blood drains from their heads. Their vision narrows to a gray tunnel. The bomber groans in protest, a deep, resonant sound of tortured metal that seems to come from the very soul of the machine. Mac hears a loud bang from the wing root and is certain the wing has failed. The entire aircraft shudders as if it has been struck by lightning. They burst out of the bottom of the clouds at less than 3,000 feet. The green and brown checkerboard of the German countryside is terrifyingly close. Trees, farms, and roads are starkly detailed. They are still moving at over 400 miles per hour, but they are level. They are flying. On the intercom, there is only the sound of ragged, desperate breathing. Then, a single, incredulous voice from the waist gunner. "Holy, we're alive!" A quick damage assessment paints a grim picture. The number 2 engine is dead and feathered. The hydraulic system is shot. The fuselage is riddled with holes from cannon shells and popped rivets. The main spar in the port wing is almost certainly compromised. They are a wreck, but a flying wreck. Alone, deep in enemy territory, they limp north, hedge-hopping over forests and fields, using the terrain to hide from any lingering fighters. They are a ghost, a machine that should be a smoking crater on the ground below, yet it flies alone. Back at his base, Klaus Richter lands his FW-190 and shuts down the engine. The silence is profound. He sits in his cockpit for a long moment, replaying the dive in his mind. He files his report, claiming a probable kill, but his words lack conviction. He describes the B-24's impossible acceleration, the way it outdived his fighter. His commanding officer listens, skeptical. "It was probably out of control, Richter. Its wing must have failed when it entered the clouds." But Richter knows better. He saw the way it flew just before it disappeared. It was on the edge, yes, but it was a controlled descent. It was an escape. The story of the vagrant vulture's dive, and others like it, would filter back through debriefings and after-action reports. Pilots who survived the meat grinders of Schweinfurt, Ploiești, and Berlin would speak in hushed, reverent tones of the Liberator's secret strength. It was never an official tactic. It was an act of ultimate desperation, a final gamble when all other options were gone. But it worked. The word spread through the Luftwaffe's Jagdflieger circles as well. The pilots who once laughed at the fliegende Scheunentore learned a hard lesson. They began to treat the clumsy-looking bomber with a new, grudging respect. It was still a vulnerable target, but it was a resilient one, a beast that had a final, terrifying trick up its sleeve. The B-24 Liberator would never be called beautiful. It would always be the flying boxcar, the awkward, utilitarian workhorse of the air war. But for the men who flew it, and for the enemies who faced it, its reputation was forged not on the drafting table, but in the crucible of combat. It was a machine that could be pushed past every conceivable limits, a plane that could dive through hell itself, and, if the crew was skilled and lucky enough, emerge unbroken on the other side.